In this video, we will explore a lesser-known method of punishment used by local lords during Japan's Sengoku period. We will examine the rise of local warlords, the structure and use of this method, and its administrative impact on villages and retainers. This discussion provides insight into how feudal authorities maintained control and order in their territories. Guys, can you help me to hit 1,000 subscribers on this channel? And it's my dream. Sorry for interruption. It's humble request. Let's jump into the video. The Sengoku period in Japan marked a time when regional authorities shifted from traditional court structures to local warlords. These leaders controlled territories with varying degrees of consolidation. Their rise came from prolonged military fragmentation. Local lords during this era were known as daimyo. Their influence grew as the Ashikaga shogunate weakened. Each daimyo maintained control through land distribution and military strength. Territorial governance depended on the daimyo's administrative systems. They appointed retainers to manage villages and collect taxes. These retainers ensured loyalty by overseeing agricultural output and resource allocation. Agricultural lands served as the primary economic foundation for each domain. Rice production measured wealth and determined military capabilities. Villagers farmed under strict quotas to maintain domain stability. Daimyo established castle towns as centers of power. These towns contained administrative offices, residences, and supply storages. Their layout reflected the hierarchical structure of the domain. Military organization was a key responsibility of the daimyo. Armies consisted of samurai, ashigaru foot soldiers, and auxiliary workers. Training, discipline, and equipment maintenance were regular activities within each domain. To support military activities, daimyo developed systems of land taxation. The kakadaka system assessed land by projected rice yield rather than physical area. This allowed an objective measurement of domain wealth. The kakadaka assessment influenced domain planning. Higher assessments allowed the daimyo to field larger armies. Lower assessments encouraged investment in irrigation and agricultural improvements. Daimyo reinforced their authority through written codes known as house laws. These codes set standards for conduct, loyalty, and administrative responsibilities. House laws also regulated disputes among retainers. Social hierarchy within each domain followed strict lines. Samurai held the highest position under the daimyo. Farmers, artisans, and merchants occupied lower ranks with defined roles. The samurai served both as warriors and administrators. They enforced policies, supervised villages, and maintained order. Their status depended on consistent service to their lord. Retainers often managed clusters of villages. They reported agricultural yields, population numbers, and work progress. Their effectiveness determined the stability of the domain. Daimyo relied on messengers to maintain communication between villages and the castle town. These messengers carried directives, reports, and logistical orders. Timely communication prevented disruptions in governance. Castle architecture during this period prioritized defense and administrative function. Multi-layered walls, moats, and watchtowers protected central compounds. Inner chambers housed records, finances, and political councils. The location of each castle reflected strategic planning. High ground, river junctions, or trade routes offered defensive and economic benefits. These choices strengthened domain resilience. Daimyo expanded their territories through alliances and conflict. Some relied on negotiated treaties, while others pursued military campaigns. Expansion increased both resources and responsibilities. Conflicts between daimyo shaped regional politics. Battles determined control of fertile lands and strategic fortresses. Political marriages and hostage exchanges supported temporary alliances. Village life under daimyo rule required steady labor. Farmers cultivated rice paddies through coordinated planting and harvesting cycles. Artisans provided tools, armor, and household items. Merchants played an essential role in distributing goods. They traveled between domains to supply daily necessities and military equipment. Their trade networks influenced regional economies. Tax collection followed defined cycles. Villages recorded annual yields for inspection. Officials stored portions of rice in domain granaries to sustain armies and administrative staff. Granary management ensured food security. Stocked reserves supported castle towns during shortages or conflicts. Proper preservation techniques reduced loss from humidity and pests. Resource allocation extended beyond food storage. Lumber, iron, and textiles were distributed according to military and civil needs. Retainers monitored these supplies through detailed logs. Law enforcement relied on structured procedures. Officials investigated disputes, monitored criminal activity, and upheld order. Punishments varied depending on social status and severity of the offense. Record-keeping formed the backbone of administrative accuracy. Scribes documented land surveys, population registers, and tax accounts. These records helped daimyo evaluate domain stability. Religious institutions participated in governance indirectly. Temples and shrines owned lands and maintained influence among villagers. Daimyo collaborated with religious leaders to strengthen legitimacy. Education within samurai families focused on literacy, strategy, and moral principles. Writing and reading skills enabled better management. Ethical teachings reinforced loyalty to their lord. Daimyo encouraged the construction of irrigation systems. Canals, embankments, and water gates supported rice cultivation. Improved irrigation yielded more consistent harvests. Public works projects supported domain development. Roads connected villages to castle towns. Bridges allowed faster movement of supplies and troops. Craft production thrived under organized oversight. Blacksmiths forged weapons, armor, and farming tools. Potters, weavers, and carpenters supported domain infrastructure. Trade routes expanded as domains stabilized. River transport carried rice and other goods. Packhorse caravans traveled long distances along mountain paths. Local lords maintained registries of craftsmen and laborers. These lists helped allocate workers for military and civil projects. Skilled laborers were essential to domain efficiency. Population management required accurate census data. Officials counted households, laborers, and dependents. Population shifts affected tax capacity and agricultural planning. Military logistics demanded careful preparation. Storage of arrows, spears, and armor followed strict guidelines. Armories inspected items regularly to maintain readiness. Retainers conducted surveys to monitor land quality. Soil assessments guided planting decisions. Areas with poor conditions received additional support or adjustments. The daimyo's council reviewed reports from across the domain. Advisors analyzed data on agriculture, law enforcement, and military matters. Their recommendations influenced domain policies. Political loyalty was crucial for domain security. Daimyo offered stipends and land grants to retainers who demonstrated reliability. Disloyalty resulted in removal or reassignment. Economic stability rested on consistent harvests. Poor seasons disrupted military planning and administrative functions. Rituals and ceremonies encouraged community unity during difficult periods. Some daimyo encouraged artisans to settle in castle towns. These policies stimulated economic activity. Organized guilds formed among skilled workers. Village headmen mediated between peasants and retainers. They coordinated labor, collected taxes, and managed local disputes. Their role was essential for daily governance. Domain boundaries shifted frequently during the Sengoku period. Mapping efforts relied on local knowledge and rudimentary surveying tools. Accurate boundaries reduced conflicts with neighboring lords. Armies required strict coordination during campaigns. Retainers assembled troops according to assigned quotas. Logistics teams managed supplies and transport. Environmental conditions influenced strategic planning. Floods, droughts, and harsh winters affected agricultural productivity. Daimyo adjusted domain priorities based on seasonal changes. Land redistribution occurred when daimyo sought to reward service or correct inefficiency. Retainers received new holdings based on performance and loyalty. Redistribution strengthened centralized control. Financial administration relied on standardized measures. Rice was quantified using traditional units such as koku. Consistent measurement simplified taxation and resource management. Interaction between domains occurred through diplomacy and controlled trade. Envoys negotiated boundaries, alliances, and economic agreements. These interactions shaped regional stability. Peasants maintained communal farming systems. Shared irrigation channels and levees required collective maintenance. Cooperation ensured consistent water supply. Samurai households followed strict codes of conduct. These codes regulated attire, weapon maintenance, and daily behavior. Consistency strengthened discipline in the domain. The influence of the daimyo reached into cultural life. Patronage of artisans and performers promoted cultural identity. Festivals reinforced community loyalty. Internal security depended on well-trained guards. Patrol schedules and checkpoint inspections prevented unrest. Security procedures followed standardized protocols. Domain leadership required adaptability. Daimyo responded to political shifts, military threats, and natural challenges. Effective leadership preserved territorial integrity. By the late Sengoku period, some daimyo consolidated significant regions under their control. Their administrative systems became more structured. These developments prepared the foundations for broader centralization that would follow in later eras. As local lords expanded their authority, they developed enforcement mechanisms to regulate behavior within their territories. One of these mechanisms was a set of punishment tools designed to maintain order. The Grasp of Thorns emerged within this administrative framework. The method relied on readily available materials. Thorn-bearing plants grew in many regions of the Japanese countryside. Rope makers incorporated these thorns into coarse bindings intended for punitive use. The rope used for this method was thicker than standard bindings. Artisans structured it to hold multiple layers of thorny strands. The construction ensured uniform pressure when tightened by guards. Retainers supervising punishment stored these ropes in designated armories. Each rope was cataloged according to length and condition. Regular inspections ensured that tools remained functional and consistent. The thorns selected for the rope came from hardy shrubs. Their hardness and sharpness allowed them to withstand pressure without breaking. This durability increased the effectiveness of the device. Preparation required weaving the thorns into the inner layers of the rope. The outer layer concealed the sharp elements while allowing them to protrude slightly. This design facilitated controlled penetration under pressure. Officials considered this method suitable for infractions judged severe but not requiring capital punishment. It served as an intermediate measure within existing legal codes. The goal was to correct behavior rather than remove offenders permanently. The Grasp of Thorns was applied to limbs, usually arms or legs. Placement depended on the nature of the offense and the instructions of the supervising retainer. Positioning followed standardized guidelines. Two guards typically managed the application. One secured the rope around the targeted area. The other tightened it using wooden handles attached to the rope ends. The tightening process was incremental. Guards rotated the handles slowly to produce steady pressure. The controlled movement helped ensure procedural consistency across different cases. As the rope tightened, thorns pressed deeper into the skin. The design allowed pressure to distribute evenly along the limb. This structure ensured predictable outcomes. Officials recorded the duration of each application. Time measurements varied depending on domain regulations. Accurate documentation maintained fairness between cases. After reaching the required tightness, the rope remained secured for a prescribed period. Guards monitored the condition of the offender throughout the process. Monitoring reduced the risk of unintended injury beyond authorized limits. Although the method produced severe pain, its purpose within domain administration was corrective. Daimyo viewed physical discomfort as a deterrent against further infractions. The controlled structure aligned with broader policies on public discipline. The procedure took place in designated areas near administrative compounds. These areas allowed officials to oversee the process directly. Their presence reinforced the authority of domain law. Retainers maintained written records of each application. Documents noted the offender's name, offense, duration, and the condition of the rope used. These records became part of the domain's judicial archive. Domain physicians occasionally examined offenders after punishment. Their assessments ensured no complications interfered with agricultural or labor duties. Maintaining a functional workforce was an administrative priority. The method also served as a public reminder of expected conduct. Observers understood that violations resulted in defined consequences. This awareness supported adherence to domain regulations. Officials chosen to apply the method received training from senior guards. Training emphasized uniform technique, precise tightening, and controlled timing. Consistency reinforced the credibility of the system. The rope required periodic replacement to maintain reliability. Wear and moisture affected thorn sharpness over time. Armory personnel managed inventory to prevent tool deterioration. The Grasp of Thorns was considered less resource-intensive than metal-based devices. It required no forging or specialized equipment. This accessibility made it suitable for remote domains with limited craftsmanship. Within judicial procedures, the method appeared in punishment lists alongside fines, labor assignments, and temporary confinement. Its place reflected an emphasis on calibrated enforcement. Each punishment type matched specific administrative needs. Villagers understood the method's purpose within the legal order. Compliance with agricultural quotas, tax deadlines, and work rotations minimized their risk of facing disciplinary measures. Clear expectations supported domain stability. Offenders subjected to the method were returned to labor quickly after recovery. Administrative leaders avoided punishments that impaired long-term productivity. This balance allowed domains to enforce rules while preserving manpower. The construction of the rope allowed flexibility in how tightly it could be applied. Retainers could adjust severity based on the nature of the infraction. This adaptability increased the method's utility. In some domains, records show variations in thorn density. Denser arrangements increased pressure distribution. Sparse arrangements allowed deeper individual penetration. The rope's thickness also varied between domains. Thicker ropes offered greater structural stability. Thinner ones increased precision but required more careful handling. Standardization efforts appeared in domain documents from later Sengoku decades. Some daimyo encouraged uniform punishments to improve administrative order. These efforts reduced ambiguity in judicial decisions. Application procedures always required at least 2 guards. This rule prevented unauthorized alteration of severity. It also ensured oversight during the process. The offender's arms or legs were positioned on wooden supports. These supports stabilized the body during tightening. Stabilization prevented unintended movement that could disrupt the procedure. Guards verified rope alignment before tightening. Proper placement ensured even thorn contact across the limb. This prevented irregular pressure distribution. Some domains used water to soften outer rope layers. Softening allowed the rope to conform more closely to the limb. This technique increased consistency in thorn penetration. After the procedure, guards cleaned and inspected the rope. Maintenance removed debris that could weaken fibers. Proper upkeep prolonged tool lifespan. This method differed from restraints used in battlefield contexts. It was designed solely for judicial purposes within administrative territories. Its use reflected civil rather than military necessity. Officials viewed the method as an effective deterrent for recurrent minor offenses. Property disputes, tax delays, and work violations commonly resulted in its application. Patterns varied by domain size and leadership style. The Grasp of Thorns integrated into broader systems of accountability. Villagers were aware of both written and unwritten expectations. Courts handled disputes while retainers enforced rulings. The method aligned with the practical needs of decentralized governance. Each daimyo required efficient tools to manage populations. Accessible materials and predictable outcomes supported administrative goals. Application occasionally occurred during market days. Officials used such events to reaffirm regulatory authority. Public oversight reinforced the legitimacy of domain governance. The ropes were stored in sealed containers to protect them from moisture. Humidity threatened fiber strength. Proper storage ensured consistent function. Some domains documented minor adjustments to the procedure. Adjustments included tighter wrapping patterns or modified handle lengths. These changes reflected experimentation in administrative practice. The methods used declined gradually as larger political structures gained control. Centralized authorities favored standardized forms of punishment. This shift reflected broader administrative consolidation. However, during the height of daimyo rule, the Grasp of Thorns remained a practical instrument. It fit within the capabilities of local lords and their retainers. Its reliability ensured compliance with established norms. Retainers received periodic evaluations regarding their handling of the method. Evaluations ensured that procedures remained consistent across villages. Performance reports became part of personnel records. Domains with larger populations used the method more frequently. Higher population densities increased administrative challenges. Consistent enforcement helped maintain order. The method's structure reveals how local lords relied on simple yet effective tools. Thorn-woven ropes required minimal resources while offering controlled outcomes. This balance matched the constraints of regional governance. With the procedures established, offenders understood the consequences of violating domain regulations. Predictability reinforced social order. Administrative leaders considered this predictability essential to territorial stability. The Grasp of Thorns produced measurable administrative effects in domains that used it. Records indicate reductions in repeated infractions among villagers. Local lords considered these outcomes indicators of policy effectiveness. Retainers monitored the behavior of offenders after their punishment. Observations focused on work performance, attendance, and compliance with village regulations. These evaluations became part of routine administrative procedures. The method's reliance on simple materials continued to support its practicality. Thorn-bearing plants and coarse ropes remained accessible in rural territories. This accessibility allowed uninterrupted implementation during peak agricultural cycles. However, as political power shifted toward larger centralized authorities, administrative practices changed. Standardized legal codes became more common under emerging national leadership. These codes encouraged uniform punishments across different regions. Domains adopting these centralized codes gradually reduced reliance on localized methods. Officials favored punishments supported by written legal structures. This transition placed greater emphasis on regulated, formal procedures. Castle towns developed more structured court systems. Judges appointed by higher authorities began overseeing cases once handled solely by retainers. This expansion reduced the autonomy of individual domains in determining punishments. Some domains documented improvements in village stability without the use of the Grasp of Thorns. Increased oversight and improved agricultural management contributed to these outcomes. Administrators noted that consistent governance reduced the need for physical enforcement tools. Over time, the method became a reference in older administrative manuals rather than an active practice. The shift reflected broader changes in governance, communication, and resource management. Villages adjusted to new expectations under growing central authority. By the end of the period, the method remained part of historical records relating to local administrative tools. Its use demonstrated how decentralized systems adapted available materials to maintain order. The decline resulted naturally from political consolidation and expanding legal uniformity.